Hello my friends, and welcome to today's Christmas card tutorial. So for this tutorial I am going to attempt to create this effect, which I did with watercolor. So this is watercolor and it's called the bokeh technique, where you create these lighter circles in the background, almost like shimmering lights, fade in the blurred rather. I can't even speak. I don't know what's wrong with me. But this is really pretty, and I thought I have to try and create this using alcohol ink. So wish me luck. Here we go. So for this you're going to need a cup of coffee with this lovely mug my daughter brought me back from Canada, or tea, whatever it is you choose to drink. And I have a stencil, I have my Ranger stamper, I've got a couple of different blues. I'm using Denim, Baja Blue by Jacquard, and Aquamarine. I have a POSCA pen with a small nib. This one is a 0.7. I have my mini mister. I also have these little stampers, these little craft stampers, and we're going to use I don't think that alcohol ink will work with this to create the white. So we're going to use a little liquid acrylic ink in white. Again, I've not tried this yet, so let's see how it goes. All right, so I'm going to start by adding some blue to a clean felt tab to create my background. I'm going to use, apply the different blues. And I've also taped down my photo paper with a little washi tape because I like the way that border looks. Let's hope this works because the effect is so pretty. I've seen it done using a white stamper, but I don't have one. And again, that was with watercolor, not alcohol ink. Okay, so I've applied my blues. I'm going to use my mini mister to wet that a little bit with some alcohol. And then I'm going to start stamping my background. And you want to make sure that you cover the entire paper, that you have a nice amount of ink on the paper. I'm speaking like I've done this before. I'm thinking that that's what we need. And you can see that because the stamp is pretty wet with the alcohol, that the colors are blurring together really nicely. Forgive the background sound. I'm in my studio and it's a little cold in here. It was like 25 degrees this morning outside, so I'm feeling it down here. So I have the heater going, and that's the sound that you hear. And of course I have my trusty companion sitting just outside my room. That's Diesel. Okay, I think that that should be good enough. But you see that little grainy texture that I'm getting? That's really nice because it will add to the effect. So I'm going to continue stamping just so that I can get some of that. And that happens as the ink dries. Oh, that's really pretty. I really hope this works because this background is just too pretty to waste. Okay, now I'm going to take my blow dryer and dry that. Want to make sure that it's completely dry. Let me cover my inks so we don't have any accidents. And now I'm going to shake up the acrylic ink, and I'm going to use a piece of photo paper, but I'm going to use the glossy side Oh no, that's not what I want to do. I want to use the matte side. This is just a scrap where I was painting some lemons. And I'm going to put some down on the paper so that I can pick it up with my little spongy thing. And now to create this effect on water paper, you use a wet brush and the stencil, and you scrub the paper a little bit, some heavier in some areas, lighter in others, and that's how you get that effect. But because you can't really do that with alcohol ink, I'm going to use, my smallest stamper and the stencil here. This was inexpensive, got it on Amazon, and it works really well. So let's try first in this corner. I'm going to pick up some of that ink and kind of clean it off on my paper, and then I'm going to start kind of scrubbing it in there. Maybe pick up a little bit more. And it doesn't really disturb the ink underneath, which is wonderful. And there's my first one. And I'm realizing that I can actually go a little bit heavier. Let me see. I'm going to clean off my stamp as I go along. Oh, that's good. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to continue filling up my paper with these circles. And I'm going to alternate between larger ones and smaller ones. And I'll make some, I'll even lay some over others. Let's see how that works out. So that's wet, so I'm going to move to a different area, and I can see that I'm going to go through a lot of ink, so I'm going to put some more down on my paper here. And I'm going to continue filling this up using the different sizes and making some more opaque and others a little bit lighter. Alright, so I've done some more of these circles, and I'll tell you what I'm finding. I'm finding that if I use whatever ink is left on the brush, I can get some lighter ones and some darker ones, and that's a really good way to alternate. Let's see, I want to darken this one a little bit. Just be careful when you have a wet one not to lay the stencil over it, because it will smudge. So you can see I'm just pouncing for the smaller circles, and they're going to be a little bit darker. And I'm just going to continue using whatever ink is left on my brush, because again, that's how I get these lighter ones and darker ones, and I really like that effect a lot. So this is pretty easy. It's a little time consuming, but absolutely worth it, because the effect is just so pretty. And I love the way it looks in watercolor, so I had to find a way to do it with the alcohol inks. Let's see. Let's get a nice darker one in here. This is just so pretty. I'm so excited that I was able to come up with a way to do this with the alcohol inks, because, oops, I just put my stencil in the ink. Be careful not to do that, because you'll transfer it onto your paper, and you don't want that. So, all right, let me continue filling this in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've gone ahead and finished all the circles that I'm going to create, and you really can get carried away. I also found that while I was doing this, that if I pounce, I can get darker ones. So if I pounce like this with my little stamper that I can get some darker values in the ink. And that's what you want. You want some lighter, some darker, and you want to make sure that you layer some of them. So this may be my last one, but you know me, I say that all the time. I'm running out of ink. Let me just put down one little drop more so I can finish this. And then we'll move on to the ornament, which again is very simple to do. So now if you don't have one of these little stampers, you can cut up a sponge and use that. That'll work just fine. And if you don't have the stencils, use a piece of photo paper, cut some circles into it, and use that as your guide. So there's many ways that you can achieve this. You don't need to have everything that I have here. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to stop. And now I'm going to make sure that this is completely dry. And you can see that some of these circles are darker than others. And I have lots of different sizes. Okay, my paper is dry. Now this is where the POSCA pen comes in. Well, actually, I think I may use the stamper to, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm going to choose the size of my ornaments, and I have a couple of these stencils, so I think I want to make sure that they are larger than the circles that I've created. So I think I'll use this one as my first one. And I think I'm going to use a little bit of the ink just to soften the sides, and then I'll use the POSCA pen to fill it in or to outline it. But you can see that this is working pretty well. So I'm just putting a little bit of that ink on one side, and I am mushing it around. And I'm going to make sure that I have a little bit more on one side because that's going to be my highlighted area. And now I'm going to take the POSCA pen, make sure you shake it first, and I'm going to outline it like this and carefully lift. And there's your first ornament. I think that worked out really well. So let's, you know what, I may just create one ornament. I want to darken this just a little bit more, so I'm carefully going to lay that stencil back onto there. Let me pump my pen, make sure that I have enough ink coming down through there, and I'm just going to make that line a little bit darker. Or maybe even use the ink to darken it a little bit more. I have to get some ink on the paper. I want it to stand out a little bit more. So I may actually try pouncing and see if that helps. So I'm just going to try and get the ink on one side of the little spongy thing and pounce that in. And then I'm going to dab some off because I want it to be lighter on the other side. I'm going to remove some of that and kind of soften it a little bit, I think. I'll try and get some of that off. I don't want that much. And now I'm going to try again with the POSCA pen to outline it. Oh, that's much better. Okay. And I think I'm going to keep this simple. I'm just going to do one ornament because I don't want to mess this up. So now I'm to create these little leaves or twigs in there. Very simple. I'm just going to create a line. I'm going to try to create a line. And then I'm just going to do these little loops. and then fill in the area in the middle. Make sure to go over it if it's not white enough. You want this to stand out. And make sure that you have some coming from the bottom. You can see how easy it is to create these leaves. Nothing difficult about it. I'm just doing these elongated ovals. Kind of like a loop, a long loop, and then filling it in with the POSCA pen. All right, let me finish filling this in and I'll be back in a moment. All right, so I've finished putting in all my little branches, and now I'm just going over the petals and the stems, just because I want them to stand out and I want them to be as white as possible so they stand out against the background. And I have some coming from the side where it's just a little leaf peeking from the side, because you want it to look as though it's round. So all I'm doing is just going over the ones that I've already created, and this is a perfect opportunity to define some of those petals if you'd like to. Make them a little bit pointier. And of course, you don't have to use this particular design. You can use whatever you like. I just wanted to choose something that would be easy and fast. And I think that this was perfect. Now, to fill in that area that doesn't have any of those little stems in it, I'm just going to group 3 little circles together. And you can see, very easy to do with the POSCA pen. And this is just a nice little filler for those blank areas. Where you need just a little bit something. Okay, I can get carried away, so I'm going to leave that alone. Now I want to make sure it's dry, so I'm going to use my blow dryer. And I'm actually going to define this line over here. Look at me living on the edge, not using the stencil. So I'm going to be really careful. I want this side to stand out a little bit more because I feel like it's getting lost. So you may have to go over it a couple of times, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just want to make sure that the white is as white as you can get it so that it stands out against the background. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it alone. And now I'm going to make sure that it's completely dry. Alright, so now that I've made sure it's completely dry, I'm going to use the POSCA pen to create the top of the ornament. And I'm just going to use a little curved line here and another little curved line here, and I'm going to use the pen to create some little lines just for a little detail, and I'm going to make the loop for the ornament. Keeping it simple. I'm going to dry that. Now I'm going to use my stencil to create a straight line. and that will be the string for the ornament. Oh, that looks good. And I'm going to, I put these little dots on this string, which just made it a little bit more special. So I'm going to do that with the Posca pen. You don't have to do this, but I happen to like the way it looks. I think it makes it just adds a little more detail to it. That's all. And then you can write your message here and keep it very simple. Now this one is a little bit larger than the other ones that I've created, which were, no, actually it's the same size. I don't know why it looked larger to me. Sorry about that. All right, so now let's get to the fun part. Let's remove the washi tape and see how this looks with a nice border. So as you're peeling the washi tape, try and peel it off the way I'm doing, so that way you don't damage your paper at all. So I'm pulling it completely away in a very sharp direction here. And this washi tape is great because it doesn't damage the photo paper. I've used blue tape, and that's painter's tape, and I have had issues with that, and it's supposed to be low tack. So you have to be really careful when you're peeling that off. But the washi tape works wonderful. If you don't have washi tape and you want to use the blue tape, just take the tape and I'll show you in a minute. Let me just peel off this last piece. How adorable is that? Take the blue tape and put it down on a paper towel or maybe your pants or something, and it'll gather some lint and make it less tacky. So now, if you have some areas where the ink seeped through, that's really easy to remedy. Just take a little paper towel or a Q-tip, anything you have, and just run it across that area. Make sure you don't have too much alcohol on your piece of paper towel, and just carefully clean up that line. Now I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you give this a try. I'd love to see how you do, so be sure to share your painting on my Facebook page of Evil Vintage Designs in the comment section below this video. And as always, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your interaction with my channel is really helpful and greatly appreciated. It's also a wonderful way to show your support. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.